Good evening. I'm A.O. Fleming, Vice President for Institutional Advancement. On behalf of President Fedrick, I welcome you to our second of several virtual town halls. This evening, my colleagues and I will have several important topics to discuss with you. We'll be responding to your questions that have been submitted previously via email and those submitted during this meeting by way of our YouTube comments feature. In the interest of time, those questions that demonstrate similar focus have been and will be grouped and distilled into one question. As a reminder, this town hall is only being broadcast through the official ASU YouTube channel. With that said, I have the following statement to read on behalf of President Marion Ross Fedrick. She sends her apologies as she has an urgent personal and family matter that she has to address and is unable to be here with us this evening. Good evening, ASU faculty and staff. I send my deepest regrets for not being with you today. However, my absence was unavoidable. Members of the cabinet have gathered here this evening in my absence to discuss key components of our return to campus efforts. This past Monday, I, along with the cabinet and several of your colleagues, returned to the campus. Trust that we are taking all measures necessary to ensure a safe return to the campus for everyone. I look forward to seeing you on campus again soon. Yours for ASU, Marion. With that said, colleagues, I'd like to introduce you to our Vice President for Fiscal Affairs and Administration, Mr. Sean McGee, and our Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Success, Ms. Kenyatta Johnson, as they present to you tenets of our campus reentry plan. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to first say thank you to all faculty and staff who assisted with the reentry task force. Because of your commitment and dedication, we're confident that our return to campus will be one that prioritizes the health and safety of our campus family. As noted in the campus reentry message from the Office of the President that you received via email last week, we have planned a phased return to campus. On June 1st, the President, her cabinet, and essential employees return to campus. All remaining employees are expected to return to campus no later than June 15th. To accommodate social and physical distancing, some units are implementing staggered work schedules for their employees. Employees who are not able to return to work by June 15th due to reasons such as health, child care, or elder care are asked to contact their supervisor immediately. Supervisors will work with human resources to determine if alternative work arrangements are necessary. We have established an online reporting mechanism to accommodate the submission of your request, and your supervisor will provide a link to that reporting mechanism. Lastly, some general requirements for returning include wearing a face covering while on campus, unless in a closed office or workspace alone, practice appropriate social and physical distancing to the extent possible, avoid gathering in groups of 10 or more, avoid crowded places and mass gatherings, holding meetings and conferences virtually where possible, and following medical providers' directions regarding COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 related symptoms. If at any time while you're on campus you feel uncomfortable, you should reach out to your supervisor and human resources immediately. I will now defer to my colleague, Mr. Sean McGee, to give an update on facilities readiness.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I want to echo Ms. Johnson's thank you to the members of the reentry task force. There was a lot of hard work done and performed by your colleagues that were a part of this. A lot of hours went into this in a compressed time frame to meet all of our deadlines we had to submit to system office for approval. Ms. Johnson talked about a great number of the reentry plan. I'm going to focus on the facilities portions of it. As part of our reentry plan, which began being executed this week and looking for the majority of staff to return by the 15th, we are increasing the frequency and the effective techniques used to clean the buildings and the common spaces. We will also be focusing as we enter into the fall, enhanced and more frequent cleans of classrooms and those shared academic spaces, the technology and the equipment that will be utilized at that point in time. As you begin to return to campus, you're going to see signage and physical barriers that are being installed over this week and the lead up to the 15th that will direct you to remind you to follow the social distancing and the CDC guidelines, and will provide you with capacities on elevators and capacities for restrooms and those types of things to know what the limits are so in order to maintain social distancing. The university also will be providing some PPE equipment and supplies to the employees. We have purchased 2,000 cloth masks that are going to be distributed out, or currently being distributed out from your supervisor down. So as you re-enter, you need to, your supervisor should have those available. Each employee should be receiving one of those. Additionally, we purchased over 50,000 paper masks that will also be available to augment and supplement those for both faculty, staff, and students should they come and need to mask up to maintain social distancing. We're also going to ask, as employees return to campus, that we utilize our facilities ticketing system to submit requests. We do know that as a lot of work has been done while a lot of us have been at home, the facilities people have been here. They've been maintaining the buildings, maintaining the grounds, and making sure those are sanitized, clean, and ready for you all to return. But as you return and you notice your areas as you walk through, if you see something that looks like it needs to be addressed, please report it through this process. Marketing Communications has sent email reminders on how to do that. They'll continue throughout the next couple of weeks to send reminders out so that facilities can best capture those tasks that need to be done. I believe later on in the presentation we'll have some more specific questions that you've submitted. So at this time I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Peters for an update from Academic Affairs.
Okay. Thank you. In Academic Affairs, we're committed to ensuring that students are successful when they return to ASU this fall. This is not extra work on our part, but an investment for our ASU students. We're also committed to ensuring that faculty and students receive the training and support they need to blend different forms of teaching and learning. This means we must prepare for instruction in a broad range of circumstances. In addition to the University Reentry Task Force that you just heard from both of our co-chairs, we have an Academic Reentry Task Force which feeds into the University Committee. Likewise, the Academic Reentry Implementation Team was just assembled to provide a phased approach with timelines for fall reentry for teaching and learning. These guidelines should be ready to disseminate to faculty next week. This will include guidance on blended teaching, guidance on classroom capacity with social distancing, guidance on labs, clinicals, internships, field experiences, and the like. The Center for Faculty Excellence in Teaching, as well as distance learning, continue to provide faculty teaching resources, videos, and workshops that will be very helpful in the classroom. We are very excited about our graduate school enrollment for fall. Currently, we are up 33% with graduate enrollment relative to last year at this time. Kudos to the Graduate Council, university recruiters, and Dr. Ochi's staff and his recruiters. We're equally excited that our students are returning in the fall. Registration for fall has increased tremendously for returning students. Kudos to the professional advisors and to our faculty advisors. And lastly, I want to talk to you about our library and academic support centers. In order to continue offering the same quality services to our library patrons in the fall semester, we will be modifying some of our processes to accommodate social distancing. For example, signage will be placed in the library buildings to direct foot traffic, and some seating areas will be corded off to maintain a 6-foot separation. We will also install partitions around the circulation desk and around our open computers to minimize contact. Our tutoring, the study tables, and other academic support services will also be modified and changed for the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff. We will continue to offer one-on-one tutoring in the libraries and through video. Because of social distancing, group tutoring and study tables will be limited to the number we can safely accommodate through social distancing. I will now turn the presentation over to Dr. Wendy Wilson for an update on student affairs.
Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to provide an update on the Division of Student Affairs. Allow me to begin with housing and residence life. Once again, we're seeing high numbers of applications and the identification of room reservations. As a result of COVID-19, we are in compliance with the Centers of Disease Control, CDC, Department of Public Health, and USG, as they have mandates and compliance measures regarding our configuration of our rooms. We have always had slated rooms that were identified by having 3. Because of those measures and need for compliance, we have reconfigured those rooms, and they are either 2 or 1. So because of that, as you can imagine, we have had a tremendous increase to our wait list. We are working very vigorously to try to identify housing and collaborating with enrollment management to make sure that we do get all of our students situated on campus, and those that we are not able to accommodate, we are working with community partners to assist with trying to identify housing. As it relates to counseling and student accessibility services, our students' needs continue, and so because of that, we are collaborating with outside systems, external services and entities. In particular, let me extend a thanks to Dr. Vicki Phillips and Dr. Stephanie Harris-Jolly, who are initiating that or have been initiating that effort to ensure that our students' needs are met as it relates to mental and emotional well-being and identifying those external partners for our students. Career Services continues to actively engage with our students. Let me extend congratulations to several of our students who have been selected for internships throughout the country, in particular those who were recently identified to intern at Coca-Cola in Atlanta. We'll continue to have further updates as it relates to their success. Meanwhile, other students are being assisted as it relates to professional development opportunities. The Office of Student Support and Student Conduct works very actively in supporting our students throughout the year. We are fortunate to have been identified as as an institution that receives the Project Trellis grant. Our students have needs outside of the scope of the traditional tuition and books, and so what that does is that grant allows us to assist students, whether it be food insecurities, whether it be housing insecurities, whether it be utility needs, and the like. The application deadline will extend through June 12th for those who are enrolled in the summer session. We will now transition to my colleague, Ms. Kenyatta Johnson, and she will provide an update on enrollment management and student success.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I'm excited to share an update on our summer and fall enrollment. For summer 2020, after our final purge for non-payment on this past Monday, we have over 2,700 students registered. This is a direct result of the commitment of every single unit on the campus in prioritizing the registration of our students despite the circumstances. We are finalizing enrollment this week after we complete the attendance verification process, and RAM Central is conducting a How Are You Doing text campaign to provide support to our students earlier in the semester to ensure a successful outcome. We will also continue efforts with the EAB early alert process, and we are excited to host our second cohort of the Summer Success Academy this summer with over 70 registered students. For fall 2020, we have close to 5,000 students already registered. This is over a 60% increase from where we were this time last year. Registering students earlier allows all of our processes to work seamlessly and ensure the successful enrollment of each student. We have over 11 weeks remaining before the start of the fall term, and with the continuation of our virtual recruitment efforts and our constant contact with our admitted students, we are confident that our fall 2020 enrollment will remain strong. The success of our enrollment is a true demonstration of just how strong we truly are, and I'm grateful to each of you for your continued support of the Division of Enrollment Management and Student Success. That concludes my report on enrollment. I will now turn it over to Mr. McGee for an update on fiscal affairs.
Thank you again, Ms. Johnson. As as you all will recall from the previous town hall meeting and from several other communications that have gone out, the state asked all state agencies, including the Board of Regents member institutions, to prepare a reduction plan and target a 14% reduction in the state funding allocated to each agency. ASU leadership over the last several weeks diligently reviewed their respective areas and met and presented actions from each area that were compiled and submitted to USG as required. Part of their considerations that they asked us to review were to attempt to impact instruction and student services to the degree possible, and the plan submitted use those guidelines to ultimately prepare and submit to USG. Included in those recommendations were required furloughs that were prescribed by USG. They were not optional, they're included. ASU's recommendations did not include any reductions to any currently filled positions, but did propose elimination of several vacant positions across the university. I'd like to just remind everybody that at this point in time, this 14% is only a target to plan for. The General Assembly has been out just like all the rest of us have. They are planning, from what we are being told, to reconvene the middle of June, at which time one of their earliest priorities will be to pass an FY21 budget. Once that has been passed, then we'll know what any actual reduction may be, and those allocations will then be handed down to each institution, and we will be able to know if furloughs or reductions are in fact going to be required. But at this time, there is no definitive answer that they will be. Briefly, want to update everyone on the CARES Act as well. For those of you that have been following the CARES funding for institutions, you know that all institutions in the United States received an allocation of funds, the 50% of which were to be directly paid to students. That was the first portion that was available to apply for and available to receive, and I'm glad to report that we have applied, received, and dispersed those funds to students at this point in time. The remaining 50% of those funds were for institutional use and had certain requirements about them, and we additionally received a portion of HBCU CARES funding, both of which we had to submit a plan that had to be turned into the Board of Regents to ensure compliance with state, federal policies and regulations. Portions of that plan we know have been approved, but we're still working with our USG partners to provide additional information and have the plan completely approved. We expect that to happen over the next week or two, but do not expect any hiccups or surprises in that submission of that plan. With that, I will turn over the presentation back to Dr. Peters for an update or for some advanced questions that we took, and she will moderate those questions for us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. At this time, we will respond to questions that were sent to us in advance by our listening audience. First question, what are the COVID-19 cleaning protocols for classrooms, restrooms, and common areas?
So I'll fill this question, Dr. Peters. So as I mentioned in the earlier presentation, there will be increased frequencies in those restrooms and those common areas that are going to be cleaned, the classrooms as well. We're looking at, in the fall, there'll be increases in the frequency that they're in there. Additionally, we'll be providing resources for each classroom so that in between sessions or in between the deep cleans, there'll be resources to wipe down areas that are of any concern. And as far as common areas and restrooms go, again, there'll be different methodologies used other than the traditional cleaning, as far as using different substances that have a residual effect, and will maintain sanitized areas longer than pre-COVID methods that were used.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Will the university provide personal protective equipment for the students, faculty, and staff? If so, how will the university go about distributing this PPE?
So again, I think we covered that in the original presentation, but just to restate it for the purposes of this question, the university is providing masks to all employees. We've purchased them. They have started arriving. The cloth masks are here. We're in the process of distributing them now. So as you arrive back, if you're already here, if you haven't gotten it, you'll get it before the week's out. If you're arriving on the 15th, it should be here when you get here from your supervisor. And for those of you that do not return to fall, obviously you'll get it when you return in the fall.
Will ASU address testing and contact tracing?
Testing and contact tracing will be performed by the Department of Public Health, but ASU will assist in providing any related demographic information to the Department of Public Health.
Thank you. What is the current status of possible staff reductions and furloughs?
So as I stated earlier in the presentation, those decisions have not been made pending a final budget passed by the state's General Assembly and an allocation from the Board of Regents. Any furloughs or reductions would have to come after that point in time. So while none's been made yet, if that occurs, of course, that information will be communicated as soon as possible.
Thank you. Will hand sanitizer and other cleaning materials be provided for each office?
There will be a supply of cleaning materials provided for the areas that can be utilized to wipe down areas in between the facility staff cleaning, should that be needed, yes.
For office staff that sit out front or in cubicles, will there be some sort of protective shield for people that approach the desk area?
So as part of the COVID-19 Reentry Task Force Committee's work, areas that were going to be known for student staff interactions have been identified. There are physical barriers that are being installed. We anticipate the ones that primarily affect staff will be in place by the 15th, and any other ones that would be required prior to the fall reentry will be in place in time for the need that will be there then.
Thank you. What methodology is being explored for the proposed staff reductions?
I think I touched on it a little earlier that the guidance given by the university system was to review our current operations across the university and determine, what reductions will be necessary, whether it be staff or operating reductions, with attempting to minimize the impact on instruction and student services to the degree possible. Obviously, a 14% reduction would not prevent it entirely, but I think to the degree possible, the leadership team did employ that methodology. Again, I'll just reiterate, our 14% reduction plan as submitted did not include any reductions of field staff positions at this time. And the furlough methodology, I think that was covered as well, but just to recap it was required by the USG, and any furloughs we do would be in accordance with what they mandate.
Thank you. Please provide some additional details that are being put in place prior to the June 15th return date, including signage and social distancing markers.
So I think you've heard throughout the presentation several comments about increased signage, but we will certainly have reminders across campus of how to practice social distancing. Each entrance to every building will have hand sanitizer stations as well as signage directing employees to, to the required general requirements Ms. Johnson kind of covered in her presentation. Additionally, areas like restrooms will have capacity limits posted outside. We'll also have markers in elevators and capacity markers in elevators. So not only will you know the number of people that should be in there at any given time, there'll be spots on the floor to assist employees in determining where to stand to maintain social distancing.
Thank you. Has consideration been given regarding opening later than June 15th?
So the reentry date is a topic that was covered by the reentry task force. As we went through that, we of course were under the guidance that every institution's needs and requirements are different, depending on the size, scope, the student body, the location, geography, et cetera, et cetera. In our case, taking all those factors into account, the June 15th date was determined to be the date to submit as the best plan so that people would be in place to prepare appropriately for a fall reentry and to successfully return everyone to campus. And so we submitted that date, and that is the approved date that we are bringing staff back.
Thank you. At this time, we have two questions that we just received from you, our listening audience. First question, what do I do if I cannot return on the date that my supervisor has provided?
As stated earlier in the presentation, employees who are unable to return by June 15th are to contact their direct supervisor immediately, and the direct supervisor will work with the employee in HR to request appropriate accommodations. There is an online reporting mechanism that will allow you, if it's for health reasons, to upload your documentation from your physician, but HR will be the point of contact to assist with that process.
And our next question, can I return to campus earlier than the date my supervisor has provided?
I think that's that's not an uncommon question. We've seen those come forward. I think that the 15th date is there as a way to protect our staff, and so for the members that were coming in on the 1st, they were selective in who's returning so that they could then prepare for a safe reentry for other staff. Certainly, I think it's a discussion you can have with your supervisor, and if deemed appropriate and safe for you to return earlier than the 15th, I do not think that would be an issue, but again, I would encourage the employee to talk with the supervisor to understand why the 15th date was chosen for them, and if they'd like to return earlier, have that discussion and just come to an agreement that it is safe to do so.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. At this time, we'd like to thank you all for joining us, our ASU family, and on behalf of President Fedrick. And I understand we have one more question. And this is our final question for the evening. Are the healthcare providers who were helping at Phoebe still living on campus?
Currently, we do still have some of those providers residing here.
ASU family, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. On behalf of President Fedrick, we wish you well, and we hope that you are very, very safe. See you soon.